We're all connected. We can get going. So thank you everyone for joining us today for our April All Hands meeting for the MSCC. We're glad to see you all. I am Leslie Jones, Director of Program Development, and we have two very engaging presenters to talk to you about some things that hopefully you will find useful for your institutions. And before we jump into all of that, are there any new people here today that have not introduced themselves previously at one of our all hands meetings? If so, you can just go ahead and jump in and do so. All right. So everyone who is here today have been part of our community for a while now. So thanks for joining us again. And like I said, we're going to move forward because we have a lot to cover. So first, well, this is our agenda. Pretty simple. We'll go through it. You'll see us moving through this agenda, our 5 points that we're going to be covering today. But first thing we want to make sure everyone is aware of is our upcoming event on the campus of Virginia Union University in Richmond, Virginia. That is taking place June 25th through 26th. And it is focused on our Mid-Atlantic region HBCUs. So those of you who are in the Mid-Atlantic region, that's from Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland, on down to most of North Carolina. You are in that region, and so we hope that you are able to join us and that you will get some of your colleagues to come along as well. We have a lot of some new things planned for you that hopefully, again, you will find beneficial for your work. Next, our annual meeting, May 29th through 31st, which is in Washington, D.C. Some of you have participated in our annual meeting previously, and others of you have not, so we invite you to join us. If you are an HBCU or TCU faculty member, you have no registration fee, and we have travel support available for you. If you are not an employee or a student of an HBCU or TCU, you can go ahead and register and we'll let you know if we have space for you, but there is a $200 fee to register. Welcome you again to come join us in Washington, D.C., my hometown, and in May. We're going to be focusing on climate science, research and campus technology, and leadership. The registration is live. There's information going out about our keynote speakers that'll be published today, so that we're really excited about that. And again, hope that you will join us. Trusted CI will host the 2024 NSF Cybersecurity Summit this October 7th through 10th, 2024. Funding is available to provide support for up to 20 attendees who represent MSCC consortium participant institutions. So if you are officially registered to be a member of MSCC and you are with one of our institutions, the HBCU, HSI, or TCU, there is funding available, but it is provided on a first come, first served basis. And no more than 2 people per institution will be supported. So if you're interested in going to their cybersecurity summit and you would like to go, but you're concerned about the cost, they do have funding available. It's a survey available for you and a link so that you can go ahead and get more information and sign up. I'm going to leave that up there for a couple of minutes just in case there's somebody who's interested and wants to scan it. All right, so moving along, we are ready for our first presenter, who is Marone Livney from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, to discuss Open Science Pool, OS Pool, and Open Science Data Federation, OSDF. OS Pool is the largest pool of free computing resources for researchers and educators across the country. Open Science Data Federation, OSDF, enables users and institutions to make data sets available to compute jobs running in distributed high throughput computing, DHTC, environments. So Marone, I'm going to let you go ahead and take it over.
Okay, thank you. And as you can tell from my title, I changed things since I gave you the title, so I hope you don't fire me as a result of that. And let's go.
All right.
So I really want to stress the notion of open capacity, and really the most important message that I want to share with you today is we are out there, and feel free to get in touch with us, and I will show you some of who we are, what we do, and how it all works. But this is all a tip of the iceberg, and we know that every campus and every group are different. So if it doesn't fit what I just said, what I presented here today, then come and talk to us and tell us, can you make it fit? And that is a part of our vision of what we call translational computer science. This is in the foundation of the center that I established on our campus in 2006. And the idea is that we take innovation, we deploy it, and then we build a community around it. And the OSG is one community, the OS pool, you heard about it, and the OSDF are coming from the CC Star community, and we are another community that we are supporting is what's happening on our campus. So the important message here is we are a group located at computer science department, and we have the means to modify what we are doing based on the feedback that we get from the deployment and the community. And we also need the deployment of the community in order to accomplish what we want to do. So let me give you a sense of what we do on our campus. So in the past year, and this is available to everyone, you can just follow the link at the bottom. We supported over 300 projects on our campus. We delivered more than 40,000 code years on the campus. And maybe the most important thing is that we had over 1,000 facilitation interaction over the year. So facilitation is a cornerstone of our vision. We are the one who actually pioneered the term. Those of you who know Lauren Michael, I hired her as the first research facilitator ever. And we are very pleased that she continues to spread the gospel. So this is the CHTC. Now, the software that we are generating is deployed all over the world. So the HD Condor software suite is deployed at these 154 locations at least around the world to support the local research computing activity. And it ranges from CERN that has 300,000 cores plus to, I can tell you, there are 200 cores managed by Condor on the summit of the Rubin telescope. So it's all over, and it's all available. It's open source. We'll talk about the cost of things around. And as we talked while we were waiting for the discussion to start, all of this is using networks. So if we don't have networks, we cannot do any of this. But a key thing that I want to share with you today is that making progress in what MSCC is set to accomplish takes a lot of time and requires patience. It is not a pushover that you get done in a month or two or even a year and move on to the next thing. This is a long process. And I'm going to give you an example of the interaction that we have with Jackson State University. So it started actually a little bit before that, but the email that I got from Tor in 2018, in early 2018, saying we would like to come and visit, and we would like to do with it. This actually followed some earlier interaction that we had with them through a grant that Clemson had with, I mean, but let's assume we started in March 18 to talk about the visit, and that was the introductory, and they said, oh, we would like to come in March 18. They actually came in January 19. So here is a summary, and you can see actually the thanks to Lauren as being one of the hosts. And so it took a year just to organize a meeting that they were already committed to come a year before that. And everything was great and a lot of positive things. And actually, what happened out of this is that they went ahead and submitted the CC Star proposal with our collaboration and support. We didn't get, but it didn't fly. In May, they heard that it didn't work, and the panel said that they have to do a better job in motivating the need and the impact on on the students at JSU. So here we are in May 22, and we will submit next year. Okay, then we have pandemic, and we have a lot of things that happened after that. And I can say that the next time that JSU resurfaced was actually when Terry Haygood with Russell showed up in the OSG school in August 23. And I think they had a wonderful week this time in Madison. And by the way, as you can see in one of the pictures, we had also a cohort, which is a story by itself, of students from Africa that came in as part of the NAIAID program, the ACE program, and that's another interesting success story that I'll be happy to share with you, but we have only 30 minutes. So Terry was here, we started to talk to him, and we said, okay, let's revive it. The bottom line is that in April this year, we finally connected on something that is actionable and saying, can you help us? We want to do a CC Star. We want to create some capacity on the campus. And as Russell asked me about it as we were waiting, we have now a meeting with Robinson, if you remember him from the rejection of the proposal in May 2nd. So the next time you invite me to give a talk, I will give you an update. But it takes years, and we will make progress. And I will show you some other examples later. But this is a key message here. So speaking a little bit about history, in October 1st, 2020, NSF funded us to launch the PASS project, which is a partnership. And as you can see from the statement of the proposal, is that we are unique in bringing together the development of technologies and methodologies at the same time as we advance adoption. So this goes back to the translational model that I presented to you at the beginning, and this is a key for you to think about as you are working with us. We are not a vendor, we are not a provider, we are not just taking things off the shelf. We actually want to hear from you why what we are doing is not good, so we can improve it. And the partnership is between two entities, CHTC, that I already talked to you about it, probably too much, which is the home of the HD Condor software suite, and the OSG Consortium, which is an organization of, if you want to call it a willing, that comes together that is responsible for providing a fabric of services. And it's important for me to share with you what we wrote in our executive summary in terms of the broader impact, and to understand what motivates us, and also understand the principles that are guiding what we are doing, and to welcome you to judge us. Are we really fulfilling what we promised to do? We believe we do, but that doesn't count unless you tell us that we are really promoting sharing, we are really facilitating local autonomy, we are enabling organizations to bring together, to come together for unity of purpose, and that we build it on mutual trust. And again, we can have another presentation of 30 minutes on the whole different aspect of trust in all the dimensions, and a lot of what we can accomplish depends on mutual trust between the participants. So we believe that the past project provides services that can advance the science of researchers on your campus. And we, as I will show you, we can provide open capacity for researchers that have lists of jobs. We see a lot of science being performed when I need to do this for each of these. I need to process each of these images. I have to do inference on each of these documents. I have to simulate each of these parameters, and I want to compare each of these pairs of genes. So this is our philosophy. We like researchers that come with a list. And as I can show you, the list can be short and the list can be pretty long. And as you heard earlier, one of the services that we provide is the Open Science Pool that provides capacity that allows the execution of these lists of jobs. And this capacity is coming from 86 sites across 54 institutions that we pull together to provide the capacity. And I would argue that we do a pretty good job, that in the last 12 months, I told you 54 institutions, 86 sites, we executed over 180 million jobs. So each of these elements in the list is one of these 180 million. And as you can see at the bottom, we are executing about 6 jobs per second. You know, while I'm talking, the jobs are, and we supported 490 researchers from 220 projects from 95 institutions. And in order to support them, and thank you, Quilt, for the networking, we executed 5.2 billion file transfers. So while we are running about 6 jobs per second, we are doing 165 file transfers per second, sustained over the 12 months. And the institutions that benefited are not the institutions that are contributing. These are 2 different sets of institutions. And I will point out to you what you can do to become one of these 95 institutions. So just to show you what can happen in a day, that would happen on April 22nd. 500,000 jobs, 57 researchers, 5 million transfers, 1 million core hours. That's what we do. And if you click, this is on the web, if you click on the project, you will get this beautiful pie chart that some of our friends at NSF really like. They like these colors. I don't know why, but they like it. So you can see that there are projects with large numbers, there are projects with small numbers, both in terms of number of jobs, of hours, GPU hours, and look around and see whether you can find something interesting there. But if you look at the list of projects that is at the bottom of this page, and I start with the tail, that you actually have different group, and there's even a project for the MSCC that executed 260 jobs. Okay, fine. If that's the size of your list or the size of several lists, that's okay. And you can see these are the different fields of science. But if you look at the top of the list, there is a group of the lab of Eric White, who is a young assistant professor at the University of Pittsburgh, that his group performed almost 28 million jobs. So researchers on your campus can fit into any of these. So you will obviously ask yourself, okay, how can any researcher on my campus harness the open spool, the open capacity on the OS spool? Fine, that's the question. So all you have to do is to go to this website and submit a request. No proposal, no applications, no nothing. Just come and say, as some say, we're willing to drink from the Kool-Aid. And it's there. It's open capacity. We talk a lot about open data, but open data without open capacity is not that useful, because eventually we have to do something with the data. So what I'm showing you here is a path, and no pun intended here, to open capacity. Now, once you make such a request to join, then the OSG research computing facilitators are waiting for you on the other side. And they are there to help you, to facilitate you, not to do the work for you. And I assume you heard it from Lauren, we don't do the fishing for you, we teach you how to fish. And here are some numbers of what this team did so far this year. We did 4 monthly training with 42 attendees. We have 48 visits to our office hours, 56 orientation meetings, which are the one for newcomers. And we also started for the CC Star program mainly to bring together the campuses, and that is less the researchers and more the people on the ground that have to pull the whole thing together. So if you become a contributor to the OS pool, and actually we decided to put 10% of our Slurm cluster into the OS pool, that would be a dashboard that you can take a look at it and see what happened. And you can see that a single institution in 1 week can support 32 organizations across the nation through 36 projects. Okay, we can look at the numbers of how much memory they used, how much compute they did, and all the kind of thing. There are a lot of interesting, but this nuclear physics on the average over the week ran almost 600 cores. So this is available. And it also, by contributing, you can then have a news item like this that came from the GPN group, the Great Plains Network, that's saying, look at this. We were able, through our collaboration with PASS to contribute to a national activity in radio astronomy. So all these pieces are coming nicely together in terms of how do we bring capacity and bring participation both to the researcher, but also bringing the institution into the fold and making them part of the national cyber infrastructure. But I am positive that for many of you in the audience, you're saying, okay, you're talking research, you're talking research, you're talking research. What about teaching and learning? Because we are pretty aware, even though I'm sitting comfortably in an R1 campus, that for many campuses, the main challenge is when it comes to teaching and computing. So I will share with you two examples. And again, things take time. So in the fall, with the help of Russell and AHAC, I visited the SKC college and the SK college, I should say this. And I had a day of discussion one-on-one with faculty to understand what will be useful. And given what the college is about, it is not about the kind of research workload that I just described to you. And the conclusion was that a Jupyter hub would be of great value. So when I came back to Madison, we set up a Jupyter hub for them at CHTC. You see, it's easy for us because the capacity that we have can also be used for other things, and then when needed, we use it for the hub, and if not, we use it for other purposes. And our expertise is to make sure that all of this works smoothly, depending on who needs it. The other message that I want to tell you here is that we are happy to come and visit campuses and to talk one-on-one. I am a firm believer that the best we can do is by sitting one-on-one with the faculty and understand what they are doing, going back and forth, and not in larger setting. So we did it. We set it up quickly, so it will be ready for the beginning of 2024. And then I asked Lee Stewart letter, who I believe is in the audience, to tell me, okay, I'm going to report to this wonderful group. What can you tell me? And that's what he told me. This is his words. So we are making progress. Some of it, they tried to use it. They realized that they are going to do better with their local capacity, where the others benefited from with our studio and other kind of activities to start using the Jupyter notebook and the Jupyter hub and notebooks, sorry. So it's work in progress. Okay, and in this case, we have accomplished something relatively quickly. It didn't take 5 years or 6, but I think that what was for us a relatively small effort to set up this capacity and make it available to Lee and his colleagues is already there are challenges of how do you bring this thing into the classroom. So here's another example, and in this case, I also went and asked them for their input for another TCU, and I prefer to present it in their words rather than me telling you. And that is about SIPI, the Southern Indian Polytechnic Institute. That is something we started years ago. And here's what we did. And again, it focuses on teaching. So I removed a couple of the slides that Dennis gave me because, as you can tell, I'm almost touching the 30 minutes allocated to me. But the thing is, they got into doing distance learning, and as you know, the TCUs are pretty much active in the GIS space. And to tell you, a significant hurdle for us was that what they do is purely Windows, and we are purely living in the Unix Linux world. So there was a lot of learning for us to figure out what we need in order to provide them with what they expect to do in the Windows world. So you see that the gap is in many different dimensions. In this case, it is Windows world, because all the capacity that I showed you earlier is Linux capacity. It's not Windows capacity. So there are, I don't think that there are that many CC Star proposals that say we want to install Windows on our cluster. But obviously, they went into the distance learning as a result of the pandemic. And here are the lessons that they learned from doing it through a commercial provider. And an interesting aspect to it is how expensive it is. So since we are talking about open capacity and about sharing and all the kind of things, we got engaged in a discussion. Can we help? And we started a joint activity in December of 2020. So we are well into year 4 of year 3. Well, it has been a while. And we said, we'll host you. And I can tell you that the cost of the hardware, and we had to go back and forth and all this, was about half the cost of 1 year of a commercial provider. And the hardware can support much more than just one class. And we work together, and I'm really pleased to report that in January 24, we had the first live class on it. And yes, broadband is a challenge. And how do we get better networking to the TCUs is a challenge. But the other parts, we made work, and they have been serving CP and saving them $1 or $2. So here's the feedback from the introduction of this course. And everyone seems to be pleased. And we are all talking about how can we do more of this, bringing in more TCUs into it, do a better job on sharing and all that. And I think this presentation is part of this effort to expose what we have done and say, can we do better and more? So let me conclude here and say we have a fiber of a fabric, not a fiber, a fabric of services that can provide open capacity. It's open to any researcher on your campus. And we in CHTC, we are open to engage if you need capacity for other purposes. And I would also like to tell you that we have our annual gathering in Madison in July. We call it now HTC. We had HTC 23. We're now having HTC 24. And you are more than welcome to join us. So thank you for the opportunity. And I'll wait to after we all hear about Quilt to answer any question that you may have.
All right. Well, thank you, Marone, for that informative presentation. I'm sure there'll be some questions, so just get ready. Our next presenter is going to be Jen Leisure, the president of the Quilt, who will be discussing the recent maps for historically Black colleges and universities and tribal colleges and universities. She would talk about the role state networks played in developing these maps and why it is important to collaborate with your state network as well as with the MSCC to improve communication between TCUs and HBCUs and their respective regions. So go ahead, Jen. I'm going to stop sharing and you can take it over.
All right, great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. And I've got some additional slides in here. I'm going to start talking about the Quilt and provide some background information about the statewide and regional research and education networks, just as brief background. And then we'll move into some of the map information. So first, a little bit about the Quilt. We represent over 40 of our country's statewide and regional research and education networks. And then the larger community that are connected into these networks, the different community anchor institutions across the US. Sometimes I get asked what the Quilt stands for because we live in this world of acronyms. And so I put this quote on here about how the Quilt got named. Barone mentioned fabric. We are a fabric of networks as well. And that is that's the roots of our naming of our organization and the collaborations that happen among our Quilt members. The Quilt's work is done towards the goals of 3 strategic visions that you see here, underpinning the mission of our regional research and education networks as critical infrastructure, so powering the research enterprise, powering the educational enterprise, cultural knowledge, healthcare, and public service. To be a collaborative environment across our Quilt members to share information, to share resources, and to really kind of leverage the expertise that's within our networking community for the benefit of our public service missions. And then advocating nationally for the role of R&E networks. So that gives you some idea of the scope of the work that the Quilt does. As background here, these are the communities that are connected to Quilt members. Note that with over 40 organizations, the 40 organizations represent the landscapes that they operate in. They represent the users that are connected to these networks, and so they all operate a little differently. About a third of our members are university-based organizations. Another third are independent 501c3 organizations like the Quilt is. And the remaining third are, we call a division of state government in some way. So that gives you a rough idea of how these organizations have historically developed or evolved. And of course, all of them serve higher ed. Many of them serve expanded anchor institution verticals such as K through 12 schools, public libraries, indigenous communities, cultural institutions. Some are public safety, also connecting the public safety in their local and state governments. So an interesting breadth of experience and expertise in serving community anchor institutions. Here's a little history of the quilt, and I share this with you because the quilt has developed in a similar way, I think, as the MSCC is developing. We were a group working under Internet 2 for quite some time in our history, and we're so grateful to that support that Internet 2 gave us very early on, that helped us spawn our work today. And I mentioned the diversity of our organizations, the diversity of our networks, a reflection of the landscapes that each of these organizations and networks operate in. But we really feel like that is a true power of our community and that diversity and the rich experiences that we can share with one another. And in that, just helps to continue to improve and evolve the way that we are able to support the higher ed institutions and other institutions that are connected to the networks. I love the slide that Dana Brunson from Internet 2 created, and with a note that we need some logo updates along the way here. But just to give you an idea again that Quilt members are important in our national cyber infrastructure ecosystem as the networks that help to move the data and help to access some of these national CI resources. But of course, we are just one element in this ecosystem. And so there are the Quilt members, the regional networks are gateways and points of contacts into these national organizations, or you heard from folks like Marone directly to get in touch with them as resources. We are connected to each other and in the human way, and can put you in touch with the right resources when we talk about helping support your needs and requirements on your campuses. I'm going to skip ahead here in some of my slides, and hopefully these will be shared after that you can dive into some of those slides, and I'll be glad to answer questions on any of them that I didn't have a chance to get to today with you. But I really wanted to highlight here the profiles of the statewide and regional R&E networks as cyber infrastructure resources for the education, the academic work that you're doing on your campuses, as well as the research interests of your students. I've talked about us being the key bridge to broadening the reach of some of those CI resources I showed on the previous slide, especially for smaller institutions. For those of you that are interested in the NSF Campus Cyber Infrastructure Program, it's a really important program in terms of the visibility of bringing resources, funding available to bring these resources to campuses, again, to support your education and research requirements and interests. Regional networks serve as trusted technical consultants. Again, points of contact, talking about campus networks, talking about our broader ecosystem, talking about industry partners and their capabilities, network equipment, things of this nature, cybersecurity. Regional networks serve in these roles to help answer questions for their member institutions. And again, being that kind of trusted convener within a region or a state, being able to leverage their extensive human networks into our cyber infrastructure ecosystem, but also just to make other local connections or statewide connections for groups that are important, for campus collaborations, interregional or interstate campus collaborations are offered and supported and facilitated by these regional networks. And then I'll talk about the NSF CC Star program. Any of you that are following the current solicitation or even recent solicitations, the NSF and the program officers for this particular program have really emphasized the role of the regional network supporting smaller institutions to be involved in this program with 3 areas of regional grant opportunities within their program for networking, for compute, and for storage. And so I'm not going to go into great detail for those today. We've got resources available. Of course, the MSCC has resources available too to help you navigate. But it's one more point that I really want to be in a position with the Quilt to help connect you with your regional research and education network, to help you make contact with them if you don't already have those relationships, just so you are having these conversations around local cyber infrastructure resources, and what kind of collaborations are possible with these types of funding opportunities. On our Quilt website, we've got resources available to all of you publicly, in that CC Star proposal development. We're still really pleased with the collaboration that we had recently over the last few months with the MSCC and with AHEC, on a series of workshops about NSF funding for cyber infrastructure, particularly for HBCUs, TCUs, MSIs, and other lesser resource institutions. I really enjoyed working with the leads at AHEC, with Lauren Michael and others within the MSCC to develop the workshop series. Those materials are really a treasure chest of information, recordings, and slides available, I think, from all of 3 of our organization websites. So just an example of the types of collaborations that we have with MSCC. I have a few examples of different cyber infrastructure collaborations that happen between Quilt members, the regional research and education networks, and TCUs and HBCUs. These are just a few examples here. There are more in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see in a symbol of the collaborative work being done between the Front Range Gigapop, the regional network, and Navajo Technical University. There are a couple of CC Star grants that the FRGP, Front Range Gigapop acronym, supports and works with NTU. Working with NTU in these grants, NTU is the first TCU to be connected with a 100 gig connection into our R&E networking fabric. So great collaborations there dating back to 2018, working with CC Star and beyond. And again, FRGP serving as that technical support expertise to help facilitate the interests and goals of NTU in the CI space. Oklahoma and OneNet often gets referred to with their CI collaborations with their institutions within the state. I've got a key up here. They've had, as you can see, I think they're up to now maybe 8. This is a dated one, up to 8 CC Star proposals working with institutions, connecting institutions in that state. I use this particular logo that showcases the CC Star work that's funding that's being used to connect the Muskogee Nation in the state. And then I think I saw Natalie Palmer from Southern Crossroads out of Georgia Tech here in our meeting. Of course, they're doing also wonderful work working with their collaborators within the state of Georgia and across the Southeast on their cyber infrastructure interests. I'm moving quickly through these, but I've got quad charts from the CC Star annual PI workshop that these different projects put together in the appendix that you can dive a little bit deeper and get more information on any of these CC Star awards. Also wanted to give some examples of outside of the National Science Foundation, some of the work that Quilt members and R&E networks do to work opportunistically with other grant programs for network connectivity and other access pieces. And these showcase some of the work, collaborations being done with Quilt members in the state of Arkansas and Ohio, and support provided for the HBCUs in putting together proposals for the NTIA's Connecting Minority Community Pilot Grants. So 2 awards in Ohio, and another award, large award made to Philander Smith College in Arkansas. It can put you in touch with Quilt members and their collaborators. Maybe some of you are on with us today to talk about these grants, but again, just a supporting role to make make these institutions aware of the potential of funding and work with them on ideas of how what their campus goals are and serving the surrounding communities can fit into the types of resource opportunities or funding opportunities are available at the national level. And lastly, I've got a few snippets here or examples, headlines, if you will, of news about how Quilt members are working with tribal communities and TCUs. The first headline here is Scenic, the R&E Network in California, and their work and their collaborations with 14 Native American tribes in Southern California, connecting them with Pacific Wave, which is the international exchange in the Pacific, and connecting them to the global indigenous community and a platform where they can connect into the indigenous communities in the Asia Pacific area. A couple of the images here are with Quilt members hosting tribal broadband boot camps in their states. Michigan, our Quilt member Merritt hosting a couple of these boot camps, as well as Link, Oregon. Our Quilt member in Oregon hosting, I think, 3 or 4 of these tribal boot camps in their states over the last few years. We've got an example in the lower right-hand corner of CanRen working with the University of Kansas in a fiber partnership to connect into Haskell University. And then in the lower left, an example again of connectivity where Network Nebraska, the R&E network in Nebraska, working with the Nebraska India Community College on a wireless deployment using the 2.5 gigahertz EBS spectrum to connect K through 12 students, as well as the Nebraska India Community College students in the Omaha and Santee reservations. And now I'm going to talk about our maps in the remaining moments. So I call this our Quilt family photo. This is a photo of the statewide R&E networks across the country. Again, this is their core, their middle mile networks. What we don't have are the individual connections to the tens of thousands of institutions connected into this network fabric. I've got the URL for all the maps that I'm going to show you here at the bottom, and I'd love to talk with you more about any of them. Here is the map of how our regional research and education networks connect into Internet 2, the National R&E Network. And then with our remaining time, I'd like to focus in on some of our most recent maps and talk about some of the background for these and where our goals are for these. And the first one I'll talk about is the map for the TCUs. This map was put together in collaboration with AHEC and the data that they've collected and the work that they're doing with the TCUs. So you'll see here that the colored pins, the legend is over in the right-hand corner of those TCUs connected into our national R&E network fabric, and those that are not yet connected in. And both the TCU and HBCU maps, the HBCU map I'll show you here in a moment, these are really meant to be conversation starters. These mapping activities are about 3+ years in the making at a request of the National Science Foundation and the CC STAR program officers, really loving the national maps that we put together about the R&E networks and the Internet 2 overlay, and saying we really would love to have something similar for the TCUs, HBCUs, and MSIs. So they've been a work in progress for some time, and I'd like to say they're still a work in progress. We are absolutely open to better understanding some of these connections and relationships, and also helping to facilitate relationships among your institutions and the Quilt member networks represented here. So in a similar spirit, oh, I don't seem to be advancing anymore. I wanted to show the HBCU map, which is not coming up, but an important one to come up. If you can give me 1 second. I know that we are getting down to the wire here, but I would like to post that HBCU map. So I will share my screen one last time and hopefully have some better luck technically with the HBCU map. And again, I'd like to emphasize, the spirit behind these maps are really to be conversation starters among HBCUs and regional networks, conversation starters at the national level from a cyber infrastructure standpoint and those programs that are out there. And I'd love to learn from you. If we've got corrections to make on any of these maps, please get in touch. Please don't hesitate. Again, we view all these maps as works in progress. And we hope that this information continues to evolve in our work together, and that we get opportunities to continue to update these maps and have them be useful to our collective work and our collective missions. And from the Quilt perspective in this networking piece, and the networking piece being the enablers to reach and leverage those other CI resources. So I hope I left at least 1 or 2 minutes to start a conversation around the maps, and take any questions about the maps or other items that I had a chance to talk with you about today.
All right, so we'll go ahead. Thank you for that and asking for questions, because that's our next part. We do only have a couple of minutes left, but if there are any questions for Marone or Jen, can you please go ahead and just raise your hand, or just go ahead and jump out there with your questions so that we can get those answered for you. And additionally, if we run out of time before you get to answer your question, we will make sure you have a contact information for them when everything is sent out afterwards, so that you can follow up. So are there any questions for either of our presenters?
Yeah.
I would not
Cool.
necessarily, thanks for the presentation. It's not, I don't have a question, but I actually would like to reach out. Oh,
Yeah.
yep, you sent me
See,
your email,
exactly.
so I appreciate that. So I will be in touch. I loved everything you presented. So super passionate presentation. So thank you. Miron, also thank you for your presentation. So I just appreciate you sharing your information with us. I apologize, my husband's on another meeting,
Okay.
so you're both of us.
All right, are there any other, Terry Haygood?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for those excellent presentations. And I had a question related to, I thought it may be directed towards the Quilt program, but I wasn't sure, just wanted to put it out there. Are there any resources related to library services or publications, or any networks maybe that I could take a look at, or anyone could recommend that sometimes researchers need certain publications, and maybe those things aren't a part of databases that that really can be afforded at times.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to maybe be directed towards some information that I may be able to check out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Terry, if you could pop your email into chat, I'd be glad to follow up with you about the library question.
Okay, it definitely will. Thank you very much.
And that's actually an excellent question. It's one that we've been talking about at MSCC. So Jen will probably be talking to you about that as well.
That sounds great. Yeah, we've got Quilt members that have extensive experience in serving public libraries, and I could put you in touch with to help answer your questions about library resources and where your campus interests are for that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
This is Lee Slater. I'm at Sayers Kootenai College, and I just wanted to thank Marone for the presentation, but also in his collaboration. He reached out to us, and we were working with him since last summer, and we really appreciate the efforts that his team has made to provide a platform for us for our Jupyter Hub, and we hope in the future that our collaboration can be strong too, and we get a lot more faculty members on it. So thank you.
Thank you for that sharing that, Lee.
You're welcome, and we cannot do it without you.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions before we wrap up?
I think Terry Haygood has a hand on, and then it's Ilya who has a question.
Well, Terry already asked the question, I think. It's just
My bad. I forgot. My mistake.
No problem. Thank you.
So my question is, are there any resources or contact info for the use of generative AI in biological sciences? Because I'm in biology and it's a big topic right now at our institution.
To be honest, I'm not sure what it means, so I would be happy to talk to you if we can become more specific. Is it capacity? Is it data sets? Is it training of models? Is it inference on models? So we have different researchers in the biological sciences that are benefiting from what we are doing. And I didn't talk much about data. So let's talk and let's see if we can talk to some of your needs or the needs of others in specific terms, okay?
Yeah, so this is Ilya from Southern University at New Orleans. I think it's about skills and on the student and the faculty side, how to use generative AI for data analysis, maybe, or
So
as a
that's more
professional
training.
preparation.
So is
Yeah.
that more training or which?
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah, I think,
so,
yeah, training, more like training.
So let's see if we can find the resources to help on the training side, because that's even a higher level layer in the stack.
Yes, sir. I will put my contact info into the chat.
Yeah, the problem with chat is that it disappears, and then I assume that they will send out my contact information. So
We'll do
it
that.
would be great if you follow up on this, okay?
All right. And Russell's going to connect you. Thanks, Russell. All right. So it sounds like we're done with our questions. And the fact that we didn't have a lot also means that our presenters did an excellent job sharing all of the information that they had. Thank you everyone for joining us. Before we close out, I just want to remind everyone or let you know that we are not having a May all hands meeting due to our annual meeting. So we'll convene again in June with another great presentation. Thank you all. Thank you to our two presenters, Jen and Marone, and thank you to everyone else for joining us again. Everyone have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.